So, while working on my video analysis of the Italian localization of Half-Life, I stumbled upon this unused voice line called GMan No Regret, and I found it so interesting that after reading it my mind started racing with 1,000 of hypotheses, and so I had to make a theory crafting video on it. This is the cut voice line in question.
Well, it looks like we won't be working together. No regrets, Mr. Freeman. But there are a few survivors of your personal Holocaust who would like the chance to meet the man responsible for the total annihilation of their race.
The word choice in this cut voice line is rather fascinating.
Don't you find this all rather fascinating?
In fact, it's incredible how the G-Man tries to guilt-trip Gordon to oblivion. He not only accuses the Freeman of causing a Holocaust, with Holocaust being quite a strong word historically founded and charged with negativity and cruelness. He also adds the adjective personal before the noun Holocaust. By doing so, he directly puts the blame on the poor 27-year-old research assistant whose only role in the causing of the resonance cascade was probably only limited to inserting the Xen crystal sample inside a wacky-ass teleportation machine built by deranged scientists. But now one tangential question arises. Did Gordon commit any mistake during the experiment? Did he slide the sample in correctly? Did he really follow standard insertion procedure as he was told to?
What is he doing in there?
Well, if the gameplay on the screen was to represent the standard procedure, then yes, Gordon should stop binge drinking with Barney and take full blame for the total annihilation of humanity. As the G-Man remarks with his final 5 words of the cut voice line. We will come back to these final words later, cause that use of the possessive pronoun is quite an interesting choice from the writer of Half-Life. However, I don't think Gordon is to blame as the responsible of this mess. The same science team acknowledges that the test chamber experiment follows standard insertion procedures for a non-standard specimen, underlining a deviation from safe procedures. And during the whole scientist-lock conversation, there is a clear intent from one asshole scientist to keep Gordon in the dark about the potential dangers of a resonance cascade happening. While the black one, probably overwhelmed by nervousness and guilt, can't help but speak about the riskiness of this sketchy ordeal. Moreover, during the conversation after the disaster, Eli, instead of blaming Gordon, he puts the blame on other people.
Why didn't they listen?
We tried to warn.
Last but not least, from the administrator line,
I suspected this could happen, but the administrator just would not listen.
We can even understand that the science team as a whole isn't even fully responsible for the cascade, but that the orders to proceed came from a superior and the science team was probably forced to comply to this crazy affair. So, after all this lengthy tirade, can the G-Man really accuse Gordon of causing a personal holocaust? Let's stop on these 2 words once again, because in my opinion, by saying personal holocaust instead of stating how Freeman personally caused this holocaust, the G-Man also tries to paint Gordon as a psycho murderer who enjoyed ripping and tearing creatures so much to the point of causing a dimensional rift to slaughter extra aliens on top of common humans. All of this just for his personal satisfaction. This represents quite a serious accusation that would certainly earn Gordon the life sentence in a jail. In my opinion, the G-Man here is indeed playing tricks with the Freeman brain. He is indeed trying to manipulate him into feeling guilty and deserving of the death that awaits after the refusal of his job offer. Or perhaps the G-Man is trying really hard in persuading Gordon to accept his offer, by attacking him on a personal level. We can also perceive some form of bitterness and even anger from the GMan part. One thing is certain though, that this type of behavior is quite out of place for a calm and collected individual such as the GMan. It is indeed completely out of character. But why? Well, with this voice line, the GMan is expressing typical human qualities such as bitterness, resentfulness, and feminine manipulative practices such as gaslighting. But how could this be? The GMan isn't even a human, right? Well, I have a cool video on the matter and my conclusion is that no, the GMan is not a human. And this cut sentence kind of confirms it, since the GMan, or Mark Laidlaw, decided to use the third person possessive there to distance himself from the human race. But from the source, this voice line has been cut. It holds no value whatsoever in the Half-Life universe. It's not canon. This whole video is nonsensical. My opinion is different, cause even if it was cut, it was still ideated by the puppet master of the Half-Life plotline, Mark Laidlaw. Thus, to me, these final words, man responsible for the total annihilation of the race, are very telling about the GMan origins. If GMan were to be human, he would have used the inclusive our race, and this would make Gordon feel even more guilty because his interlocutor too was damaged by his actions. Instead, the man with a suitcase actively separates himself from mankind through the use of the third person plural. And you know what? This use of their instead of your race might also raise some questions around Freeman origins. It's actually quite weird that even though the GMan is trying incredibly hard to guilt-trip Freeman, he decides not to slap onto Gordon the extra responsibility of having annihilated his own race. What is the game trying to tell the player with this voice line? This complicates things even more, and to me it has made the plot of Half-Life 1 a lot more interesting than it already was. So, is Freeman a human? Why can't he speak? How can he wear an high band without amputating his arm? Why does the ponytail look so autistic? I guess that we will never know, and perhaps they did cut this line because it would have overcomplicated the already intricate structure of the Half-Life 1 plot and of the sequel to come. And in the sequel, Gordon seems to be human, and the sequel oversimplified the amazing Half-Life 1 plot. But that's a story I have hinted at in another video. There is also a third and final obscure passage in this cut voice line. We know that if Gordon refuses the job, he will be sent straight to his doom amidst a gangbang of jacked and thirsty alien grunts, who wear high-bands just like Gordon, by the way. So why does the GMan invite Gordon to meet the few survivors of his personal holocaust who would like the chance to meet the man responsible for the total annihilation of the race? Were alien grunts originally humans? Have they been turned into armored gym rats by a mysterious force of which the GMan is probably a part of, that is striving to build a huge army to dominate the galaxies? Maybe yes, maybe not. We will unfortunately never know for sure. But there are two more interesting cut voice lines than Nihilanth should have used, which may clarify some doubts. The first one is Nil slaves.
Their slaves we are, their slaves we are.
Which Half-Life Source actually uses. And well, it's quite straightforward, and it confirms that the alien grunts are slaves belonging to an higher power. Little side note, aren't the scientist and Gordon himself slaves of the administrator's will too? Yeah, Half-Life is quite a deep game. The next cut voice line is GMan, and it recites like this.
You are man. He is not man. For you he
It's quite interesting how the Nihilanth cares to point out how Gordon is a man, as if he already predicted that the GMan will try to manipulate Gordon by raising some doubts inside him around his human origins. Maybe the GMan had already manipulated the Nihilanth and other Xen creatures to be the slave of his employers, and thus the baby-shaped final boss tries to warn Gordon not to fully trust the slick-looking GMan. This voice line also remarks on how the GMan instead is not a man. And you know what, I want to trust this Nihilanth guy. You know, a betrayed person that is chained up and locked inside an unfurnished room can never really tell lies. Moreover, the fact that he repeats "for you" twice, followed by awaits, suggests us that the GMan might be very anxious to meet Gordon in person to propose him or force him to take his job offer. This eagerness and anxiety justify the very manipulative and out-of-place behavior from the GMan side, who really tries to stir up Gordon's emotions to make him rethink his denial. So, what conclusions can we draw from these voice lines? That aliens too can be assholes, and to never trust an alien in human disguise, especially if he's wearing a very formal attire. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and the ideas that I proposed. Subscribe if you like the video, yay!